Okay, now we're going to be looking at clip 60, grade D questions, looking at long multiplications with decimals. Now let's just choose some of these questions. Let's pick question number 1A first of all. We have £1.42 times by 3. Okay, so we're just going to do this question over here. So £1.42, we're going to multiply that by 3. Now, £1.42 times by 3. If we look at this question, it looks like any other normal times table question. Now, what we need to take care of, we look at the decimal places in the question. We have 2 decimal places in the question. So we will have 2 decimal places in the answer. Okay, so we have a rule that says, so we count the number of decimal places in the question. So the number, short for number, the number of decimal places in the question is equal to the number of decimal places. Remember, it's the decimal places and not decimal points. So as we mentioned here, so in this number here, 42, we have 2 decimal places. The number of decimal places in the answer. Okay, are we happy with that so far? So we count in the decimal places. So here, these ones here, decimal point, 2 places there. We have 2 places in the answer. So 2 times by 3 is 4 times by 3 is 12. And 1 times by 3 is, add 1 is, so the final answer is 4.26. So the most important thing I want to emphasize here is this rule. This is a rule that in this particular question doesn't look like it's done much. It looks as though I've just lined up the decimal points. But one thing you must remember, we never ever line up decimal points in multiplication. We always do that in addition, subtraction, and division. So let's write that down. So for addition, subtraction, and division, for these 3, when we're doing decimals, we line up the decimal points. We line up the decimal points. From the question to the answer. When we are doing division, so I'm doing multiplication, we do not line up the decimal points. We use the above rule. It might look as though we've lined them up, but that's because the rule has lined them up. But we're not lining them up. Okay, are we happy with that? So that's a very simple example. Now we're going to look at another example where we're going to need to actually this rule comes to life. You can see it being used. Okay, the next question we're going to try is going to be question number 6. Elliot goes shopping. He buys 2.5 kilograms of grapes at £1.89 per kilo. How much does he pay? So we are focusing on this question over here. Okay. Right. So the calculation that we have to do here is going to be what? Let's have a look at our calculation. If you buy 2.5 kilograms of grapes at £1.89 per kilogram, what we are doing is £1.89 multiplied by 2.5. Okay, what we're going to do now, we're going to follow the rule that we just wrote down earlier, which I had to clear the page because I needed a clean page. The rule says, what was the rule? Count the number of decimal places in the questions. Watch now. So 1, okay, don't write anything down at the moment, just watch for a moment. 1, 2, 3. Remember, this is the decimal point here. That's the decimal point. We're not counting decimal points, we're counting decimal places. So in the first number, we have 2 decimal places. In the second number, we have 1 decimal place. Decimal places are all the numbers after the decimal point. So how many decimal places did we say we counted? 3. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to make a statement now. My statement reads, I have, I'm going to say it's supposed to be green actually, yeah. Okay, we have 3 decimal places in our question. Okay. So that is going to be equal to, so if I got 3 decimal places in my question, I will have then 3 decimal places in my answer. And there's 8th answer. Okay. So that's the rule we are going to utilize. So now we're going to do the question. 1.89 down by 2.5. .89 Okay, this is how we set up our question. As you can see already so far, if you look at the decimal point, 1's there and 1 is there. Are they lined up? Are we trying to line them up? No. You're going to follow this rule here. So let's start doing the question now. So on the first line, we multiply all of this by the first digit, which is 5. So we're going to multiply by the 5 and the first digit. So 9 times by 5 is 45. 8 times by 5 is 40. Add 4 is 44. So 1 times by 5 is 5. Add the 4 is 9. That's the first line done. You multiplied everything by the 5. Have I put in decimal points in my answer? We don't put in decimal points. Next one. So we got now everything on the top 1.89 times by the second number 2. Second digit, second line. So on this line here, we're going to multiply by the 2. So we have 1.89 times by 2. 9 times by 2 is, but what do we do first before we start? We always put a 0, a box. You can put anything you like in it, a little flower in there. Okay? But you can't start there. So 9 times by 2, we start with 1 digit in. Why? Because it's to do with place value, and that's the second digit. So 9 times by 2 is 18. 8 times by 2 is 16. Add the 1 is 17. 1 times by the 2 is, add the 1 is 3. So we need all that space. Now let's do our final answer. Okay. So 5 add nothing is, so now we're going to add them. 5. 4 add 8 is 12. So 9 add 1 is 10, add 7 is 17. 3 add 1 is 4. Here comes the beauty of the question now. Right. So as we said earlier, we didn't do any lining up of the decimal points. As you can see, they're not lined up. If you look at that, my pencil now, they're going sideways. Now, we counted 3 decimal places in there. So we said there will be 3 decimal places in the answer. Remember, A stands for here answer. And this one here is the question. So from the end, you're going to go 1, 2, 3. So the decimal point actually goes here. Now, I want to now again emphasize. Okay. Now, I want you to look at the decimal points. I want you to look at the decimal points. 1 is here, 1 is, and 1 is here. I want you to tell me if I have tried to line them up. Because if you try to make a line out of them, it is not a line. So the technique is not to line up the decimal points. Yeah, the technique is to count them in and count them out. Okay, we done? Are we happy with that type of question? Good. It's time for you to do some questions now. Okay, for the moment, I want you to try for me this question here. 0.5 kilograms of pears at 0.84 kilograms. Actually, 0.5 sounded it's a little bit too easy. Let's make it a bit more exciting. Let's make it 6.5. Okay, 6.5. Okay, and that 0.84, let's make it into 8.84. So that's the question I want you to attempt now. This one here.